Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 43 of the Psychology World podcast with me, Colin Whiteley. And today's episode is on why more authentic people tend to be happier with their lives. And it's the 17th of July 2020 as I record this. Moving on to the psychology news section, reading from the British Psychological Society's Research Digest, of course. And we're just going to look through a few articles. So, growing up with grandparents in the house can lead to more negative attitudes towards the elderly. What happens if you grow up with a grandparent living in your home? Does the prolonged contact counter prejudices, biases, and stereotypes of the elderly, or might it instead encourage negative perceptions of older people as being slow, angry, or sickly? For example, these are important questions, partly because in some countries, though not all, an increasing number of elderly people are moving in with family members. In the US, for example, 15% of older adults are now living with someone, up from 7% in 1995. Now, a new paper suggests that this trend could be causing undesirable outcomes. People in the study who had grown up with an elderly person had significantly lower opinions of the elderly than those who had not. However, these respondents did at least report less anxiety around their own aging process. This, I think, is quite interesting because it does show the quite heartbreaking truth that if you live with an elderly person, you can have negative perceptions towards them. And I guess that could be because you're seeing them more, so you learn their faults more, and you could perceive that the stereotypes do have a grain of truth into them. But it's a shame because elderly people should be valued, and we should care about them. And let's hope that these prejudices and biases actually stop people from at least wanting to spend time with them, as that can affect the elderly people's mental health. And cat people, beware, posing with your pet could make you appear less dateable. This should be interesting. I don't have a cat, by the way. If you're looking to find love on a dating app, there's plenty you need to think about. What to include in your bio, the interest you list, and what you say you're looking for. And in the age of rapid swiping, you're probably going to need a knockout profile picture too. But don't be too quick to assume that a picture with your pet might boost your chances, at least if you're a male cat owner, that is. According to a new paper, men holding cats in photographs are seen as less masculine, more neurotic, and ultimately less dateable. So this is quite amusing. Quite amusing. Not that I've ever considered online dating, but I think that there's a life lesson for any men who's listening to this. Well, don't appear with a cat. To be honest, posing with your dog, it would probably be fine still. And we'll do one more. Eating lunch at your desk again. The study examines why workers don't always take breaks, and I'm actually terrible for taking breaks. If you work for more than 6 hours a day in the UK, you're legally entitled to a rest break of at least 20 minutes per shift. Many workers get more. If you work an 8-hour shift, it's likely your employer will give you an hour-long lunch break. Whether or not you actually take that break, however, is a different matter. Despite the fact that breaks can increase motivation and productivity, that I definitely know, because if I'm doing a really, really boring publishing task or psychology task, I just take a break and that's a lot easier. And then I come back renewed and refreshed, as they say, and a decrease potentially damaging inactivity. Researchers indicated a growing trend of workers eating their lunch at their desk or not taking their rest time. Some figures suggest it's 82% of workers don't always take lunch breaks, a significant proportion of the workforce. So why is it we're often eating our desk go? Nice pun there. The study published in Psychology and Health has some insights. This was, I think, it's quite interesting, and it does have real world impacts. I'm definitely going to retweet this on my Twitter feed at Sci-Fi White today. This, I think, actually has some very interesting applications. Just because I think we're all quite like that, to be honest, at sometimes. Yes, and that's some of the themes that were, for example, they felt guilty of taking lunch breaks because they were meant to be working, and other things are like that. But I promise you, people, do not feel guilty for taking a break when you've been working hard. If you haven't been, then maybe you should feel a bit guilty. So I think that's enough for the psychology news section. Let's move on to the personal update. Moving on to the personal update of today's episode. So this week's I've not actually been doing too lot psychology related, because it's mainly just been prepping my fiction for a new sort of fictional release that I'm doing over the next few weeks and months, and I know most of you probably aren't interested in the slightest about my sci-fi fantasy books, but the covers are really beautiful. They're just amazing, and yeah, that's what I'm really happy with, the books and everything. So if you wanted to look at these sci-fi fantasy books, then you can just type in Winter's Coming on whatever ebook you read at, or you can probably just type in sci-fi trilogy books into the search bar, and then that should bring up the winter series that I've written. Yes, and yes, that, and you should enjoy it. Yes, and of course that's only if you're interested in a fantasy. But moving on to the psychology related things. So this week I've done, and I've got the edited version and the proofread version of Developmental Psychology, a second edition, so that I should be, to be honest, if you like look at your favourite ebook or retailer like right now, you should be able to find it, because I'm probably going to do the pre-order by the time you listen to that. And I've got an amazing bonus. If you buy the book by the 8th of August by the 8th of August of 2020, then you can get this exclusive free bonus, which is a quiz game. So at the time of recording, I actually still need to make it, but it should be really good because it's sort of like quiz cards. So like quiz cards with the answer on it. So if you're playing, if you're playing by yourself, then you can just cover up the answer. So what the game's actually intended for is you can give it to a friend, buddy, or whatever, and then they can ask you the question, read out the 3 optional answers, and then you guess which ones are correct. I'm actually quite looking forward to making that. And then the last thing is that I've been continuing to read the Formulation in Psychology book, and I'm making tons of notes, and it's actually quite good. But there's some weird perspectives. So, for example, personal construct psychology. So in short, everyone's constewing. Yeah, but everyone is like constewing about the world, and everyone's making their own hypothesis about how the world works. That sounds quite interesting, but really weird. But last night I did take a break from it, so I probably will get back to it tonight. So you've all got that to look forward to, that formulation, because I am quite looking forward to writing it in a few weeks. But I've got to get back to fiction first. I just like fiction too much. So today's highlighted product is my brand new Cognitive Psychology 2nd edition audiobook, which is available on all major audiobook retailers except Audible and Amazon. So here's the blurb. Do you want to know how mental processes impact our behaviour? Have you ever wondered about how a memory works and why is it flawed? Do you want to know how we think and what affects our decisions? If the answer to these questions is yes, then this is the book for you. As in this book, you'll learn a lot about cognitive psychology and how our mental processes affect behaviour, all in an easy and engaging way. By the end of this book, you will know what cognitive psychology is and how a very wide range of mental processes impact our behaviour. By today, it's a start. This is a great topic. If you like this book, then you will like my Normal Psychology 2nd edition book as well. This is a great audiobook to listen to whilst you exercise, do the housework, or even before you go to bed. So this audiobook I really, really do like, because as I mentioned last week, my narration's a lot better and it's a lot more performance based, so it should be a lot more enjoyable to listen to, and it's just filled with tons of great information if you want to learn more about cognitive psychology. So this is on all major audiobook retailers like Kobo, Apple Book, iTunes, Google Play, and you can listen to it for free at your local library. But if you want to get tons of bonuses, and if you want to support the show personally, then please check out patreon.com/Connor Whiteley. So that's patreon.com/Connor Whiteley for tons of bonuses. So moving on to the content part of today's episode, we are looking at why more authentic people tend to live happier lives. And this episode I'm actually quite excited about, simply because as a human branding person, so I help authors and businesses try to develop a more human brand so they can connect with customers and get customers to know, like, and trust them. Authenticity is a major part of that. So this I'm actually quite excited about, because this blog post / this podcast episode is actually going to form part of the psychology section for my next human branding book. So moving on to the actual episode. In 2014, researchers at the Louisiana Tech University did a really interesting study about this topic, and they used data from college students about the level of authenticity they live and their life satisfaction. And the results showed, quite interestingly, that the students who tend to be more authentic in their everyday life actually lived happier lives and they had much higher life satisfaction. This is something that's quite interesting for all of us, and the main takeaway from today's episode is try and live authentically. And the researchers suggested three main reasons for this. And if you want to look for the studies, then please go to connorwhiteley.net/blog. You'll be able to find the episode. So the first reason is by being more authentic, this leads you to leads you to follow your own unique path. And by doing this, we do what feels natural to us, and because we're doing what feels more natural to us, we're more likely to develop our interests and investigate our curiosities. And all of this leads to us becoming more high skilled and an expert in it. So if we take the psychology example, because I take it as you're listening to a psychology podcast, you want to do something in psychology, and I tend to take it that everyone sort of lives authentically to some extent. So if you're more authentic, then you could go down the psychology path. And because psychology feels so natural to you, you really do want to develop your interest in psychology and investigate the really weird curiosity known as human behavior, because let's face it, humans are weird. Yes, and then all of this will lead you to become a more skilled expert in psychology. Then the second reason is that being more authentic, actually quite interestingly, enables you to be more resistant from outside pressures, because some people want you to be a very particular person. For example, parents or friends might think you should live a certain life or you should go into a certain career, but because you're more authentic and you're happier with yourself, then you're more likely to resist this because you're able just to be free, be yourself. And I think we all know that if we want to be happy, this is something that we should do. And to be honest, there's nothing else to say on the second reason. So with the third and final reason, this is going to be a really quick episode today, is that people who are more authentic actually tend to have deeper, more meaningful relationships with other people. And this is something that I quite live. This is something that after I had a particular experience, which I'm not going to tell or say on this particular podcast, I absolutely refuse to spend time with people who don't care about me, and to be honest, that I don't care about it. And because I really do tend to live quite authentically, I think, in my own way, and I'm sure that you do, is that we tend to live deeper, more meaningful relationships with people, and people who live authentically tend to be a lot less willing to spend time with people who don't appreciate them or care about them, simply because time is very, very valuable. And to be honest, we only have a fixed amount of time on this earth, as they say, so why the hell waste it with people who don't actually like you, and etc. So I think I think this episode is actually quite a lot of food for thought today. My advice to you would just be to enjoy life, try and live authentically, and just enjoy it basically. So I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Please consider checking out a Patreon and the Cognitive Psychology 2nd Edition audiobook. And have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see the show notes, then please go to connorwhiteley.net. And if you want a free 8-book psychology box set, then please go to connorwhiteley.net. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.